I'm not saying that it's sufficient to be different. You can be different and unappealing.
It doesn't pay rent, but it works.
So you're saying, unless you have a curse. Did you have a curse? Or are you
I don't.
self-trained?
I typically am too lazy to book one.
See, you should consider the feedback, but it doesn't mean that you should completely change your style just because somebody with different style is telling you this is not what I would do.
People approach you because they want something specific that only you can do.
I'm struggling between what I like and between wanting to appeal to the audience. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Photographer Cast. I'm Farsi Photo.
And I'm Pinsel. Hello.
And today we have decided to talk about editing, which is, in my opinion, one of the best tools of a photographer regarding cost-benefit ratio. There's a lot of people who don't edit, and it's, in my opinion, a very bad decision because that's really something that can completely change your photo from mediocre to a wonderful one. What's your opinion about editing, Pencil?
I mean, without editing, personally, I used to think that it's quite important for the photographer to get it right on camera, and I kind of still do. The problem is when you get different types of gear in your hand, different types of camera lenses and everything like that, you'll eventually run into the problem that you have to relearn yourself, your work every time. That when you switch too often, you simply just stick to the thought that it's easily fixable in post. And I kind of catch myself there as well when I'm like, okay, I'm not really sure about the lighting. Let's just lower it by 1 EV and bring it up in post again. Because with the right equipment, you can just do that, which is kind of a cheap way out for paying a lot of money for high quality gear. But still, I'm not really sure about you. You kind of try not to be like me, do you?
Actually, I'm doing very much the same thing, or rather, it's not so much. I'm maybe a little bit sloppier than you. I've eventually realized that with a decent camera, you have a lot of dynamic range. So if you don't hit the exposition just right, you can actually repair it in post. It's not so much about making up for expensive gear, it's about not spending half a day adjusting your camera for a perfect setting. You just set it up and then you keep going, and then you realize some of the pictures are a little darker, some are a little bit too bright, but in post you can repair it.
And it's also the fact that when you're out and about for some chance of trying to capture some moments or some candid shots, for example, you typically just can't find the time to prep everything like that. And sometimes the lighting itself just doesn't allow for perfect conditions and perfect setup and twisting. For example, if you brought another light setup with you, like twisting this light bulb in this direction and lowering this stand in this to this height, for example, you just don't have the time for that, which is probably also why we kind of, I think everybody does just try to make use of the technology what they have and their dynamic range.
In my opinion, there are three main things that editing is going to bring. One, you said that you should make the pictures right in the camera. That is undeniably true. You should, absolutely. But for example, contrast is something you have very limited power over. If your lens is washing the photo out a little bit, there's nothing you can do about this. You will just have to add contrast in post. So there are some things that even if you expose just right, unless you really make a super complicated setup for every photo, you're going to have to add a little bit of pop into a picture. And this is actually what I was talking about when I was starting. A lot of people consider what kind of camera they should buy, what kind of lens they should buy, if they should have lights, what kind of tripod. But then they are disappointed that their pictures are not looking as good as the stuff they see online. The thing is that what they see online is usually edited, and the editing can make a huge difference, much, much bigger difference than better camera or better lens.
But you can also overdo it. Is a good example to shift the topic there, because you can also overdo the editing quite easily, especially when you got a low resolution file which doesn't allow you much room to work with, or you, for example, have a discolored monitor, for example, like you have a color filter on your monitor for gaming or for the night mode and everything like that. That
To be
also
honest,
kind of.
I
Hmm?
think this is kind of overrated. Unless you are like super professional, then this is going to have relatively negligible effect. I mean, the setting of your monitor and stuff. I don't have a professional color graded monitor, and I'm printing calendars. It works. It's not really that much of a problem, but really, I think that we are talking about two completely different things. What
Hmm.
I wanted to say is a photographer is making his first photos and he's disappointed they are not very good. And in my opinion, in my experience, 90% of cases, the problem is that he's not editing the photos. It's not about lens, it's not about camera, it's about not editing the photos. And then there is a completely different topic of sloppy editing, of bad editing, especially when somebody really doesn't know what he's doing. And I agree that
Mm,
both of these are absolutely relevant, but I would keep them separated because
I have to disagree here because I think that's goes completely hand in hand. Because when you're new and starting out, you of course don't know what you're doing, and if you haven't taken a course, a proper course that teaches you how to edit, what to do when, what slider does what, how do you do gradation curve. What's the word in English? I don't know. I don't care. Because I have no formal experience and no formal training in this.
and this is what
But
I was about to ask because you are saying unless you have a course. Did you have a course or are you
I don't.
self-trained?
I typically am too lazy to book one.
See? See? So, yeah, we are definitely going to disagree about this, which is very refreshing because normally we are agreeing with each other too much.
Way too often.
What I want to say and the message I want to send is do not neglect editing.
Definitely, but also don't overdo it.
Overdo it. Feel free to overdo it. You will get the hang of it. You will try it, mess it up, take some feedback, try it again, you will learn it. But don't be afraid that you are going to overdo it. I'm speaking of personal experience. I'm very much afraid of overdoing it. And in effect, I'm very often so conservative, it's actually hurting the photos. And it's all just because I'm afraid that somebody is going, oh no, you have put the saturation too high or something like this. Overdo it, experiment, do crazy things, mess it up. Don't don't worry about it. If you are a beginner, you want to be trying the craziest things, and then you are going to refine it and get better.
I do have to give you that one point. Kind of, when you're overdoing it, you do stand out. And I know some photographers that push their saturation to 100, they push their dehaze to 100, and it somehow works. And I don't know why. They lower the shadows, lower the blacks, raise the dehazing, and it creates this weird effect of being, I would say, in some kind of cyberpunk filter. Is that the right word for it? If you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean, and this is actually another topic I wanted to get to, so let's get right to it. The question of what is the right way to edit or what is too much editing. Regarding the
Hmm.
right way to edit, my opinion is there is no right way. The only thing that matters if you like is if you like the result. And even if you are going to have people saying this is horrible, this is oversaturated, overcontrasted, as long as you like it, it's fine. Stick with it. Eventually, it may happen that you will stop liking it, you will realize that you have been overdoing it, and then change it. But don't change it just because somebody is telling you that it's bad.
It depends on who's telling you that. When the first sitter, for example, that you took a photo of, has the critique that the editing doesn't make him look good, I think it's worth to be considered. And if the first sitter, for example, likes the editing, of course, perfect. it really depends on what you as a photographer want to achieve, and if your goal is to, let's just say, appease the fursuiter. Because when you're
Mhm.
doing a photo, you kind of are doing a service to them, especially if it's a paid photo shoot, but let's not go into there. That you kind of.
That's very important in my opinion, because what I'm talking about is mostly a beginner photographer that is starting to edit. I think that we are not going to talk about something that is going to revolutionize the way that
Hmm.
professionals or experienced photographers are going to see editing. So my target audience here is mostly the beginners, and they are not doing a service to the customer. They are taking a photo. They are learning how to handle the camera, and they are trying to get something that they are going to like. And also, I would like to say that you should not be afraid to be different. You should not be afraid to go with a style that is non-canon. And if
Yeah.
somebody pays you to photograph you, he probably knows your portfolio. And if you are doing crazy edits and they are going to complain that you have crazily edited their pictures, then the problem is not at the photographer.
I do see what you mean, and I do like this approach to it. Haven't considered that kind of. We are not talking about the specific niche that I was thinking right now. So, yeah, of course, when you're starting out, when you don't know what to do, you'll figure it out eventually, I'd say. Personally, I'm a bit more stubborn, a bit more strict about my editing, and I try to not overdo it. Not at all, despite, yeah, I can see the appeal for some, I can see the appeal for those that request it, but it just doesn't feel right. At least to me personally. I
And
might be a bit
that's
more.
what matters. That's what matters. You should feel that it's right. If it
Hmm.
doesn't feel right to you, there's no point pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. But if it feels right to you and somebody, and even if it's an experienced colleague and he's saying this is bad because of reasons, there are overblown pixels and it's not sharp and whatever, too contrasty, not contrasty enough. As long as you like it, you should stick to it. You should consider the feedback, but it doesn't mean that you should completely change your style just because somebody with different style is telling you this is not what I would do.
Yeah, that's a solid approach. That's honestly a solid approach. So we could just kind of decide it if whether you want to have more like capturing reality or do it as an over stylized artwork kind of thing when you feel
Uh-huh.
like you want to, for example, create something that is surreal looking. You of course have to
Exactly.
put the
Feel free
editing
to.
in a completely different area. Of course. I'm quite tired today, so I might not have considered that in the moment, but I do agree there. That's completely, yeah, we are back to agreeing. I see the problem here.
Actually, it's very nice to disagree for once. I wanted to mention one more thing which is related to this. I was recently doing a photo shoot for a friend, and it wasn't a farsuit photo shoot, it was a latex photo shoot. And
Mhm.
when it comes to farsuits, my original my original origins is animal photographer. I was doing a lot of wildlife. I was photographing pets, and that's a very conservative area when it comes to editing. It will be
Mhm.
very difficult to find audience for seriously surreal or oversaturated pictures of animals, especially
Mhm.
in the like professional wildlife community. And I think I'm too conservative, and I'm using the same approach for fursuits. So my pictures are usually very close to reality. I'm lately trying to stop doing that to get a little more careless and a little more crazy with the editing, but something in me is always saying, oh no, you must not do this because somebody would scold you that it's oversaturated and whatever. And with the latex photo shoot, I was like, I'm going to go crazy because this is stylized. This is not reality. This is something completely different. And I went a little bit crazy and it was great. I felt so free all of a sudden that I can completely blow the snow and get a minimalistic picture with almost completely black silhouette at a white snow. And it was very refreshing.
Mm-hmm. You have shared the photos in the photo chat in a specific one.
I
I have
probably
them
did.
here even. That's where I also
I
saw the
can
other photo shoot that we were talking about off the screen about. But anyway, I can see that. It's kind of still on the conservative side for me. You did some color grading and you did some, yeah, it's mostly just color grading from what I can see. And I
Yeah,
would,
because I'm so conservative that even just a little bit of color grading counts as crazy for me.
okay, okay. I mean, color grading is the easier part, especially when you have a certain goal in mind or a certain set or certain ambition, for example. Let's put it like that, that you kind of have to tone down some colors. Like whenever I have a red fursuiter in them, you can be rest assured that they will never have the same red in their photos that they have in real life, simply because the camera just can't capture it. And to balance the colors out, whenever I'm photographing a red fursuiter, I have to kind of play around with every color to make it not look as let's just say bright, not just blown out. Blown out is a proper word for it. And color grading like that, for example, with the let's just say brownish field, brownish winter, and with the black latex, it's just reducing it to the core color palette, which I think is not the extreme editing that I was talking about.
Yeah, okay, it's far from extreme, but for me, it's non-canon, and it was liberating. I
Experimental.
definitely experimental. Yeah, liberating. I think is the good word. That for once I didn't feel like it should be super realistic. I do color grading, and I don't mean just color corrections like a blown color channel. And those are also pictures which can be fairly heavily edited. I was recently photographing a jackal, and I very much like green cast, which is something that my teacher is very strongly advising against. He says that there are only two situations where green cast makes sense: army and swamp. But I like it. And by the way, this is exactly the situation where I'm struggling between what I like and between wanting to appeal to the audience, because the maker I was photographing for asked if I could make it like Stranger Things instead of green cast using a blue cast, and I did, and I don't like it, and she loves it, and I've shown it to quite a lot of people, and they love it, the blue one, and I like the green one, and almost nobody likes the green one. And now I'm exactly in situation: should I go with what I feel is right, or should I try to appeal to the audience?
I mean, you do know my perspective on this, and I would say if you have a commission, a task or whatever like that, and you're not acting on your own free artistic volition or your own free will, like you have one certain goal in mind that you want to achieve, but you're kind of being tipped off by others that you have to do something or want to do something, I would say to follow their idea and their ambition and their kind of, let's say, guideline that they put out because they are the ones who want the photo.
Plot
And
twist: I'm not being paid for the pictures.
still, you get the
So
attention. The attention is still the same thing. It's not,
that's a
it,
question.
it doesn't pay
It's a
rent, but it
difficult
works.
it's a difficult question for me. I like attention, but I think that if you are going to appeal to general public, if you completely subdue your own opinions and you just edit so that people like it, then you are going to become very forgettable because you will be very similar to everybody else.
Ooh, that is a very, very difficult question because when you do it for your own good and for your own will, you kind of stand out. You kind of do what you yourself like to do, which is good. But you also, if you don't appeal to the other, let's just say requests that you have, people will definitely not be able to want to reach out to you. Is that the right way to put it? because they
I think
simply
it
don't know
is.
what they can expect unless they have
Oh,
this
they do.
specific.
But they do. If you have style that is very weird, then they do what to expect. Do know what to expect. Something that is going to be very weird. A lot of people who have very distinct style that is non-canon and unique are actually very successful in the business. No, I'm not saying that it's sufficient to be different. You can be different and unappealing. But a lot of people who are very successful are actually very different from others, and people commission them specifically because they are different. The thing is that you need certain, let's say, moral strengths and or drive that tells you, okay, do it your way. And this is why I'm saying, if you like it, stick to it. If you want attention, then you can find a compromise, but there is no wrong way to edit things.
I think it does all boil down to the fact why you do something. Because in
Yeah, if you are
practice,
professional and you want people to pay you, then you want them happy.
yes, of course, you can always find your niche and you can always have your place somewhere. And people approach you because they want something specific that only you can do. Of course, there will be always a niche that you can fit into, and there will be always be people that want to request from that niche. But if you yourself do, for example, photography solely for your own interest, for your own good, and for your own what you just feel happy with, without any external motivation, without any need for external ideas, without any drive from outside, the pure intrinsic motivation, simply doing it for the fact of doing it. Like you take the photos,
And
you
there,
spend the
there
time
is
outside and have fun, and that's it. And you're completely
exactly there
happy.
are artists that work exactly like this. They just want to make photos. They are not doing it to for fame or for money. And I think this is a very admirable approach.
Hmm. But it,
Which doesn't mean that it has to work for everyone, but there are definitely people like that, and I admire that. If you allow, I think that we have been on at this topic for quite a while, and we are starting to repeat ourselves a little bit. So I
kind
would like
of.
to move it
Hmm.
a little bit further. There is a war raging in some photographic groups regarding how much editing or how much altering reality is okay. There are very puristic photographers who insist that you should photograph reality, that you should capture reality, and it should be exactly as it was. Then there are some people, most of the people are in the middle ground that are retouching out things that are unappealing. And then you have people who treat photography as just visual art. Anything is allowed. You can alter anything. You can make stuff as unrealistic as you like to, as long as it fits your artistic intention. So, where do you stand on this scale?
I mean, I've always edited out if I have the ability to, like people in the background, some clutter, some trash in the way of a photo, when it definitely does not fit in there and captures too much of the attention. I have also left people in there because I was like, okay, they kind of belong. They're in the background. They maybe don't even appear that much to the eye unless you're deeply looking at a certain photo, and I can just let them in and don't put the effort in there. Typically, I stay at the path when someone asks me to retouch and remove this specific trash bin from distance that's typically not available, not visible. I can still go back to the photo and push that out as well, or retouch them and delete it afterwards, basically. And I'm quite indifferent about that unless you replace the whole sky and replace the whole background and replace basically everything. Then I feel like kind of a line is crossed because then it's not photography anymore when you replace everything. Or would
How
you
would you call it?
replace everything?
Well, as always, I'm going to tell you yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is that whatever works for you works for you. If you are a purist and you feel that if there is mess on the ground, it should stay there. If you are the type that will completely change the picture, there are photo manipulations. Is that photography? Is that other kind of visual art? You can replace a lot of things. You can edit in new objects and create a visual art. And in my opinion, this is perfectly fine as long as you are comfortable with it. Of course, that doesn't apply to reportage, to report
Hmm.
photography, because
Of
there you
course.
want to actually capture reality. But when we are talking even a little bit of artistic expression, there are no limits except of the ones that you set for yourself. And it's perfectly fine to set limits for yourself, but only you can set them.
Yeah, I I think we still boil or talk about the same general idea of what our philosophy in photography is and what we kind of want to achieve there. And it keeps turning back to the same point in this episode, where we're like, okay, you're the person who's like, feel free to do whatever, despite being conflicted by himself and his past experience as animal photographer. And I'm kind of still at the more like purist point because when you want to get a fursuit in a specific position, you can just start drawing them. You can just be like, okay, of course, fursuit, yeah. But when you completely change out the subject, completely change out the background, the foreground, and put them somewhere completely else, like some kind of Photoshop experiment, you don't need the fursuit anymore. It might be a bit too, let's just say, radical to say that, but when you're in photography business and you do the photos and try to capture reality, I think it's more like a reportage or reporting journalistic approach to photography. But I
Considering
think
how
we
much
disagree
staging
there.
we are both doing, I wouldn't say it's exactly a reportage. It's very heavily staged, so why not heavily edited?
I think we get back to the point of doing it in camera, not doing it in camera. When
Yeah,
you
but
are do,
why not do it in camera? I see absolutely no reason. Well, one of my pictures from last year's NFC from the macro micro meet was taken by my client and given to his friend who made a photo manipulation out of it. And he's put him into a city and he was stomping on actual real buildings with, I think there were like helicopters flying around. And he's completely changed the picture. The only thing that remains is the pose and the fursuiter. I love it. I wish I could do that. I don't have skill for that, but I would totally be doing that if I could.
but is that still photography?
It's a visual art and it's based on photography because the fursuiter there is my photo.
Hmm. It is quite fascinating that depending on how you look at it and how you phrase the question, even, at least when I rephrase the question for myself, I'm kind of inclined to give different answers to it because it's so situational for me, where I'm like, okay, in this specific instance, I think it's completely fine to go in the picture and edit the people out. And in the other picture, I'm like, okay, color correction is the best I can do. And personally, I have not. Hmm?
Can you figure out why is that? Or what makes the difference?
Perhaps not right now because I still feel like, despite doing it for so many years, there's still some kind of progress happening, whether it be good or bad, or people like it or not. I have learned what I have learned, and I have stuck to whatever I have been stuck to, kind of, to put it like that. And with this learning process that keeps on happening, I mean, is that when you stop questioning yourself and, for example, stay where you are with your set guidelines, set rules, set interpretations, whatever, you can find your own niche, you can find your own spot, and you can, let's just say, make a brand out of your work, kind of, not the right word for it, but you kind of establish yourself as a person, as a creator, and you do what you have kind of aspired to reach. But when you start questioning yourself again, you can still change it. You lose the safety of your position where you actually am, and do the work that you have basically refined to do and streamlined to do, let's put it like that, for lack of a better word. But with questioning yourself, you just start to grow, start to progress, start to, let's just say, advance yourself, if that makes sense. So that might be a bit of an internal
I
conflict
think,
for myself, if you can understand it.
yeah, I think
Maybe.
so, and I think we are actually going in very similar direction. I'm just saying it in different way. In my opinion, one of my biggest faults is I'm setting too many restraints for myself. I'm having too many rules. And
Hmm.
I want to warn people against falling into the same pit, because having too many rules that are very often unjustified, just because someone told you this is a rule doesn't mean he's right, is a good way to become predictable, bored, boring. There is
Hmm. But
nothing wrong with having rules if you need something to stick to, something to guide you, but don't be afraid to change them if they don't fit you anymore.
then again, as soon as you change, you lose your spot and you lose your niche. Then when you change,
And is that
people
a
might
problem?
not. It depends on what you want to achieve. If you want people to know you for your skills and for your niche and for your work, when you change it, you're not the same anymore.
This is a very dangerous trap. I think that if you try photographing in a way that no longer suits you just so that you keep your audience, then you are going to get bored of your hobby or your job.
True that. Nothing to say against that, honestly. It is a very complicated and thought provoking, let's just say, talk for 10 p.m. right
So
now.
let's hope that we didn't bore the audience and that we are provoking some thoughts. I think that
Mm.
we have done quite a lot of talking. There is a lot more to say about editing, but I would like to return to that one thing that you mentioned, and that's the edited photo, a situation where a photo was taken by the model and
Oh my.
very heavily edited.
Oh my.
And yeah, you mentioned it. I'm just trying to introduce it to people that are listening to us, because not everybody has seen it, even though it has started quite a drama. What I want to say is that it actually exactly fits into what I was saying. The problem isn't that there is an extreme editing. The problem is that the editing goes against the intention of the photographer. And this is why he's so unhappy. Because there is some idea behind what he was photographing, and the guy went and changed it.
Then our approaches seem different because I wholeheartedly 100% agree, of course. When somebody goes about my pictures and edits them, however, I'm also quite upset about it, of course. But I think the outrage is really sparked because the edit is so overdone. Like the image is, one might say, cooked. Like all saturation, all denoise, everything to the max. Basically no resolution, and the watermark was kept in.
Imagine
So
a
I've
photographer that is going for very saturated and very contrasted style, and somebody decides that it's too much and tones it down. Do you think that he wouldn't be unhappy?
It really depends. If I know this person well and they would ask me for critique, I would say that they should reconsider what they're doing. But I think that's just my approach to it.
No, I mean something different. I mean you are a photographer that likes to overdo things. It's part of your style, and your client takes the photo and says, "This is bad. I'm going to correct it," and he changes your style to not overdone. Do you think this is okay?
As I said, if I know them right, and if, for example, if I book them as a photographer or ask them to take the photos, I know what I can expect if I've seen their work, of course. And either way, if they ask me for critique, or let's just say in your case that they send it out to me as a result, as a finished piece, and I do know them.
Sorry that I interrupt you, but I'm not
Mhm.
talking about asking for critique. I'm talking about the situation that we have here. A guy was
I'm
photographed, he
trying
has
to be a
taken the
bit
photo.
polite here. I'm just trying to be a bit polite. I would, to be honest, I would still ask them to please reconsider this editing. Either
I
way,
absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. But my point is that the problem isn't that the editing is extreme. The problem is that the editing is different than what the photographer intended.
my English is not the yellow from the egg, as they say in Germany. I understand now. Yeah, the fact that it was edited without consent.
Mhm. That's part of it, but the second part of it is that it's different. I have taken a picture of a friend, and actually it was a paid photo shoot. And when I'm editing it and when I'm cropping it, I'm doing it with an intention. I had him surrounded by street lights, and I was very happy with the result. And he was like, I don't like the fact that it's not so much about me. There is too much space above me where the street lights were. And he just cropped them out. I'm not going to make a drama out of it, but I'm definitely not happy because I had an idea. I was very proud of the idea, and he's decided that it's a bad idea and removed it.
And in that case, I would still say that he should reconsider his actions.
Absolutely. I'm agreeing. I'm
And
just saying
I
that
would
it's
also
all.
tell him that directly. Like I wouldn't just keep that to
I,
myself in that
well,
situation. I would
considering that
tell him.
he's already posted it, I was like, well, why did you do it? Because I wanted more focus on myself. Okay, well, please don't do it again.
I would definitely tell him that, and I would also say, oh, you can re-upload it, try it, especially if you have this clear of intention in mind. Like I also work with some kind
I'm,
of leeway in the cropping, but when the
I'm,
crop is tight and it's supposed to be like that, then I can tell him that.
I'm not. I'm okay-ish with that. I'm happy that he's happy. But the point I wanted to make is usually when we are making a photo, we have certain intention in mind. And when somebody starts editing it and changing it, then he's interfering with this intention.
hmm And
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
please
I mean,
talk.
we're circling back to the same point. If you're trying to appease the client, appease the first user because some kind of, let's just say, even attention is the goal, then it's a different approach to it than just being like, okay, I am the photographer and I have this approach to it, and this is my intention, this is my goal. And that's why you shouldn't crop it. That's why you shouldn't overdo the editing. That's why you shouldn't use the raw file to brighten the shadows so that it's visible what's in the shadows, apart from maybe an eye or something. So I would definitely be a bit more stern
Yeah,
about it.
I, I, I
But
would I would kind of sum it up with please, if you are our client or any photographer's client and you would like different edit, ask the photographer. He's going to be much happier than if you start editing it on your own.
and it's all
Uh,
about communication. So no hard feelings when there are
mhm.
miscommunications or anything like that. That's
Okay,
also
there's still a
important.
lot to talk about, but
Exactly.
we are already pretty long. So I think that we are going to have another episode about editing. Let's stop here, and
Yes.
maybe the audience will want to suggest something they would like to hear regarding editing. I would love to have something to talk about, or I would love to have some suggestions what to talk about. And if not, then there is quite a few more things that we can go over. For now, I'm going to thank you all. If you have any comments, if you want to share how you edit the pictures, please do so in the comments. We would love to read that. We are both analytical types and love this kind of feedback. And I'm looking forward to talking to
True.
you again in 2 weeks. My name is
Yes.
Farsi Footer.
And I'm the ever antagonistic pencil.
For once, we have been antagonistic.